Alright, this is your video for Accentuate the Negative Investigation 3.1 through 3.3. Now today we are going to look at multiplication and division with rational numbers. So let's take a look at our learning target first, right here. So the learning target is to learn how to multiply and divide rational numbers, as well as to determine when an answer is going to be positive or negative when multiplying or dividing. Now if you look below, we have two vocab words. The first is multiplicative identity, and the second is the multiplicative property of 0. Now rather than write those out here, they're actually on the website page above the link to this video. So you could pause this video right now, or when you're done, just go back, look at those definitions, and jot them down on this note sheet. But for now, let's start with our algorithm. So there are two rules for multiplying and dividing positive and negative numbers. We'll start with this first one. So when multiplying and dividing with rational numbers, if you have an odd number of negative signs in your expression, that will result in a negative answer. So for example, say you have 2 times negative 1. Because you only have one negative right here, and 1 is an odd number, your answer is going to be negative. But now let's look at the second part of the algorithm. When multiplying and dividing with rational numbers, an even number of negatives will result in a positive answer. So looking at that expression we did up there, what if we had negative 2 times negative 1? Then, because we have two negatives right here, our answer is actually going to be positive. Now this goes for all kinds of different expressions. So say we had negative 3 times negative 5 times 1 times negative 4. Because we have three negatives right here, again, our answer is going to be negative. So for any odd number of negatives, you will have a negative answer, and for any even number of negatives, you will have a positive answer. So let's get some practice looking at that algorithm, and we're going to determine with these expressions whether the answer will be positive or negative. So looking at this first one, we have 7 times negative 9 times negative 13. And since we have two negatives, our answer is going to be positive, because 2 is an even number. But now let's look at this second one. Here we have negative 11 times negative 15 times negative 2. That's three negative signs, and since 3 is an odd number, the answer to that entire expression is actually going to be negative. Now that we've done these two together, why don't you go ahead and pause this video and give these next four a try, and then you'll be able to check your answer. Alright, how did you do? The third one should be negative because we just have that one negative sign, and 1/2 times negative 2/3 times 3. The next one should be positive because we see two negative signs, and then those last two should both be negative because we just have one negative sign. So get some more practice on the back. If we go ahead and flip that over, we're going to work on solving some of these expressions together. So first, again, let's just go ahead and highlight our negative signs so we can determine the sign of our answer. So right here we have two negatives. 2 is a positive number, so our answer is going to be positive. Alright, now let's work on actually solving this one. So we can go ahead and do negative 2 times 4 first, which gives us a negative 8. And then we can do negative 3 times 5, which gives us negative 15. We still need to multiply those two together, which we can write off to the side if that's helpful to line them up like this. 8 times 5 gives us 40. And we end up with 120. Alright, remember our answer is going to be positive because we had two negatives. So 120 is our final answer. Alright, let's look at this next one. Negative 4.5 divided by negative 9. Again, let's highlight those negatives. We have 1, 2. So our answer is going to be positive. I think for this one it's helpful to go ahead and rewrite it like a long division problem. So let's go ahead and write 9 going into 4.5. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is immediately pull up that decimal right there. Just go straight up so that we get its placement right. And then we can just go ahead and divide in. So 9 does not go into 4, so we'll just write a 0 there. But 9 does divide into 45. 9 times 5 actually will give us 45. Subtract out, and we have 0.5 as our answer. And now that 0.5 is going to remain positive because we had those two negative signs. And we can just go like that. Whoops. Yikes, there was a glitch. Okay, so we've done integers, we've done decimals. Now let's look at some fractions. So here we have 3/5 times negative 4/9. Again, looking at our negative signs, our answer is going to be negative. So let's just go and write that immediately so we don't forget that. Okay, so multiplying fractions, we don't have to find the same denominator. We can actually just multiply across. Sometimes I think it's helpful to rewrite them just bigger so that you can work with the numbers. And then we can multiply straight across. So 5 times 9 gives us 45, and 3 times 4 gives us 12. But we're not quite done yet because 12 over 45 can actually be simplified. Pulling it over to the side, because 12 and 45 are both divisible by 3. So 12 divided by 3 gives us 4. 45 divided by 3 gives us 15. And our answer is negative 4 over 15. All right, now let's look at this next one. Here we're dividing fractions. So we look, there are no negative signs, so our answer is going to be positive. That's pretty easy. Now let's see, we do have a mixed number though, so it might be helpful to turn that into one big improper fraction. So let's just rewrite the whole thing. So we have 7 over 8 divided by 4 over 4 plus 3 over 4, because 4 over 4 gives us that 1 right there. And this can again be rewritten as 7 over 8 divided by 7 over 4. Now when we divide fractions, remember we keep the first the same and then we just flip the second and multiply them together. So let's rewrite that one more time because we're going to keep this first one the same, change division to multiplication, and flip the other fraction. Then we can just multiply straight across. So 7 times 4 gives us 28, and 8 times 7 gives us 56. Now, we're not quite done, are we? Because we can still reduce this. 28 over 56 actually simplifies down to 1/2, because 28 times 2 gives us 56. So then our answer is a positive 1/2. All right, we have one more question left. We have negative 35 divided by 7. Let's highlight that negative sign so we don't forget it. And because we only have one negative sign, our answer will be negative. So I'm going to write that in immediately. Now, some of you might be able to do mental math for this one, knowing that 35 divided by 7 gives you 5. If so, that's great. Others of you might need to write it out, but 35 divided by 7 is 5, and it's going to be a negative 5 because of that negative sign. All right, now there's one more thing I want to talk about before you're finished with the video. So a note about placement of negative signs, particularly with fractions. So say on a paper you saw this, and so looking at this negative 1 over 2, this does not mean that only the numerator is negative. It actually means that the entire fraction is negative. So the placement of a negative sign at a fraction really does not change anything about that fraction. No matter where it is, whether it's with our numerator, our denominator, or right outside, that just means that the entire fraction is going to be negative. So say you actually had negative 1 over 2, 1 over negative 2, and negative 1/2. These are all negative 1/2. So if you see a fraction, it looks kind of wonky because the negative seems to only be on the top or on the bottom. Doesn't matter, the whole thing itself is negative. Alright, well that concludes the video for Accentuate the Negative Investigation 3.1 through 3.3. Don't forget to go back and look at your vocab.